Hello, beautiful people! I am back with another video, and this time a different format. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a YouTuber by the name of Thurgy's Arcade. He makes a lot of videos about fighting games, and as you know, if you've seen my last video, I like fighting games. Anyway, the thing he likes to do is something called Build a Roster, where he makes up either a sequel or just a completely original idea for a fighting game and slaps it together using characters he think would fit and maybe make people happy. Anyway, that got me thinking, what if we did the same thing for voice acting? Now, I know what some of you are thinking, they already have voice actors. But not really. As any animated fan will tell you, that Hollywood actors don't exactly do the same thing that voice actors do. It's a completely different discipline. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have Hollywood actors as voice actors, but there is a bit of a difference there, especially if you ask an animated fan. So I thought it might be fun to kind of steal the idea from Thurgy here about making rosters, but instead of building a fighting roster, I build a voice cast. And instead of using Hollywood actors, which again, I have no problem with, there's plenty of Hollywood actors I think actually do a pretty good job, but in this case, we're gonna see what we can do with hiring actual traditional voice actors for these roles. I'm gonna try my best here to go across the board using older and newer voice actors alike to see if I can come up with a good variety for everyone involved. And what I'd also like to see is some comments, maybe some suggestions from you guys, seeing what actors you think would fit these roles. Now, the first thing we're going to do is the Toy Story cast. Seeing as a new movie's about to come out in just a couple of months, I thought it might be fun to redo the core cast. I'm sticking with the core cast because the extended cast tends to change as they make new movies. So it's just be easier to stick with the core, the original guys. Now that does mean that the list is gonna be kind of short, so hopefully a whole bunch of rambling will help kind of extend this video, at least far enough to make it worth your time. Alright, now let's jump right into it. We're gonna start with good old Woody, the cowboy. Originally voiced by Tom Hanks, all the way up until I believe the new one coming out. So who do I think would be a really good fit for this? Hear me out now. That's probably gonna be the theme of this entire video, is hearing me out on my picks. I pick Alejandro Saab. Right, he's one of those new voice actors. If you haven't heard of Alejandro Saab yet, definitely look him up. He does a great job. He's in a lot of video games, plenty of animes and movies, including he's actually in the Marvel Rivals game. If you haven't heard, he's Deadpool. So you're wondering, is he a good pick? I believe so. He's able to actually pitch his voice pretty reasonably low enough. I think that it would match Woody. Like, his natural voice is a little high, but I've seen how low his voice can go. So I think if he just pitches it, you wouldn't have to pitch it that far, like kind of midway from his regular voice to one of his deeper tones, and he'd sound very close to what I think Woody would sound like, which is another thing. It doesn't have to sound exactly like the original actor, because then what's the point? It's redundant. But in this case, I think Alejandro would be able to match the kind of energy that Tom Hanks gives. That's another thing, is what kind of energy are they bringing? And I think Alejandro would bring the exact same kind of energy, or at least his own energy that I think matches quite well to what Tom Hanks brings. I am stuttering so much in this video, I apologize. Now, moving on to the second in command of the Toy Story cast, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. Now, some of you might already be thinking, hey, we already have a voice actor for that. It was Patrick Warburton. When there was a straight-to-video movie, it was originally done by Tim Allen, but then they were like, oh, we want to make it for TV, so we're going to dub it over with Patrick Warburton, who's then going to take over for the short-lived cartoon show that was on at the time. So you're thinking, oh, already picked. Here's the thing. I don't think he's as good a pick as someone else. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Patrick Warburton. He does a great job as a voice actor. I'm probably going to do a video covering him soon. But I think for this, I think a much better pick would have been Steve Blum. All right, if you know what this guy does, he's been the traditional Wolverine for the past couple of decades. Everyone knows him as the original Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, and he's done a ton of stuff. I believe the way that he's able to pitch his voice and the kind of energy that he brings versus, what Alejandro brings, obviously that's really important. I think he would actually be perfect. He's able to do the same thing like Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. That's the kind of voice that you want. Obviously, I can't do it. I would be a terrible Buzz, but I think Steve would be a perfect fit, much better than Patrick Warburton. No hate towards Patrick. He is talented, he is wonderful. I think Steve Blum would be a better pick. Moving on is Mr. Potato Head. This one was really tough. This one is originally played by Don Rickles. Almost got his name wrong. Actually, no, I think he still plays them unless we've lost Don Rickles. I haven't heard. Someone let me know in the comments. And he does a great job. So again, it's really difficult to find who would bring that kind of energy, who would bring that kind of attitude. Then I settled on one of our traditional ones, one of our older ones. So, I've done Alejandro, who's like one of our newest generation voice actors. Steve Bloom, who is probably a generation before. So let's go with an older one, Jim Cummings. Yeah. Jim Cummings, I think, would actually be perfect. Now, a lot of you guys are thinking, Winnie the Pooh, really? Trust me, look up his discography. That's not the right word. Don't worry about it. He has an impressive resume, and he is able to pitch his voice in all sorts of different directions, and he has all sorts of different attitudes. I'm thinking of like his voice that he did for like Lucky Pickell in that Bonkers cartoon. I'm sure that just unlocked some memories for some people saying that the Bonkers cartoon, but trust me, believe me, he's that the voices he does for Darkwing Duck. If he brings that kind of attitude, that kind of energy along with his voice for Mr. Potato Head, perfect. Speaking of Mr. Potato Head, what about Mrs. Potato Head? All right, Mrs. Potato Head, I believe she was done originally. Let me see if I can do my research real quick because my brain is unreliable. Who was the original Mrs. Potato Head? It was Estelle Harris. How could I forget? Miss Estelle Harris, absolutely wonderful actress. I know, but like I said, this is about getting a traditional voice actor. So in this case, I'm picking Grey DeLisle. Now, again, this is someone you have to look up their history for. A lot of people might just know her mostly as Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender, but she is very good at changing her voice around, pitching it around. So I think she would do a great like Mrs. Potato. It's like, yeah, what are you doing? Hey, but Mr. Potato Head, my husband, yeah. I forget what she sounds like. It's been forever since I watched the Toy Story movies, so I apologize for that. I think she sounds like she's got that. I'm pretty sure she has that Long Island accent. But yeah, I think that she would be great. She's very good at shifting and changing her voice, and she's just talented on a raw level, especially, and you know that if you've seen her role as Azula, she's very menacing, although she's mostly known for doing comedies and things like that. She's in a ton of different cartoons where she's just straight up comical and entertaining, but so she brings that caliber. So that's my pick. This is Potato Head. Slinky Dog, originally voiced by the late great Jim Varney. Absolutely entertaining gentleman who we unfortunately lost. So that got picked up by Blake Clark, who I'm sure you guys probably don't recognize the name. If some of you do, I'm sure you do because you've seen him in some old movies. He does do some bit roles in some movies. Like I think it's the Adam Sandler movies. He's in a couple of those. Nothing too big beyond that though. But I'm thinking like, who can bring that Jim Varney energy though? Like Blake Clark actually does a pretty good impression of Jim Varney. So I'm looking for someone who can, do that kind of just do that southern accent with that Jim Varney energy. Because I know that there's that original, that Ernest show that he used to do, which he was pretty funny in. I mean, probably hasn't aged well, but when it comes to comical timing and things like that, he was very good. But for this character, it was definitely more of his lower tone, but still a very good performance. So it was actually really hard because, like I said, it's very iconic, it's very unique. But I think someone who can bring that kind of like that southern drawl, yeah, I'm just a slinky dog. And it was hard to pick, but I think we're gonna go with Jeff Bennett. All right, he's very good at doing southern drawls. He's very good at doing that just the right pitch for that kind of voice. So I think he'd be very good. He's very good at that. He's also really good comical timing. I don't know if that's something that they really need. Slinky Dog was always kind of just toys that would just vibe, but that's my pick. I think he would do very well in my opinion. Okay, and then we got Rex. This is another hard one. Rex, who is just an absolutely just like silly character, played brilliantly by Wallace Shawn. That's right, the inconceivable guy from The Princess Bride. Inconceivable! The Grand Nagus from Deep Space Nine. Very iconic voice. Very difficult, but like I said, we're not trying to get people who sound exactly like the characters, but someone who can bring that energy. Although Wallace Shawn, he was really good at bringing that energy. Like he's great as Rex. But I think I've got a good pick, and it's gonna be, in my opinion, because I've seen him do these kind of voices before. It's Sungwon Cho, aka Pro ZD, on the YouTubes, as it is known as. So I think Sungwon Cho could definitely match that energy. He definitely can do that voice. I've heard him do a very similar voice to Rex. Like I said, doesn't have to be perfect. I honestly would hate for characters to just sound exactly like, the previous versions. I'd like to see actors kind of bring their own energy, their own style. And I think Pro ZD could do that without losing what makes Rex so iconic. So that's my pick there. And then we got Ham. This is a tough one. This is John Ratzenberger. And if you know that name, either you're old enough to remember the show Coach, or you watch a lot of Disney animated movies. I am on the latter. I'm old enough to know Coach. I've never watched it though. John Ratzenberger has a really, really iconic voice. this is extremely difficult. Not only is he kind of just in every Pixar movie almost, I don't know, was he in the last couple? I actually don't remember if he was in Hopper. I saw Hopper. I don't remember if his voice was in that, but I might have just missed it. Was he in Elio? Actually, now I'm just asking myself questions. If anybody knows if he was in Elio or Hopper, which are the last two Pixar movies, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, this is tough. His voice is so iconic. So how do we swap him out? This is the conclusion I've come to. We're not going to. John Ratzenberger keeps his role as Ham. I know it's crazy. Why does John Ratzenberger get to stay? What? Look, he's way too unique. I just couldn't think of anyone that could swap out and replace him. But hey, if you guys can come up with anything in the comment section, let me know, and I will pin it if I can. I know that YouTube, you know, they want to allow all sorts of verifications before I'm allowed to do things, but let me know. Just go down in the comments, and you know what? I'll be like, you know what? You're right. Swap that guy out. Okay, moving on. Bo Peep. Now, Bo Peep, she's kind of an off-and-on character. I don't know how much you might consider her like a main character. Let's see. She was, I can't remember the voice actor, the Hollywood actor who originally played her. I know that all I can remember is that it was picked up by Andy Potts, who is currently running as Bo Peep. But I think if she's going to come back in 5, well, actually it doesn't matter because we're not talking about that. We're talking about voice cast in general. So I'm just going to put Bo Peep as kind of like, you know, one of the OGs. But I think, you know, something to match more of the modern energy, because I think she was definitely more of like, you know, one of those, like, you know, she was definitely more tougher in part 4. I think they made her a bit more independent. So I think to match that, I'm gonna pick Cree Summers. Yes, another classic voice actor, one of the older ones. Not quite as old as Jim Cummings, but old enough that yeah, you can trace her talents probably back to the 80s or at least early 90s if I recall. But anyway, she would definitely bring that energy that I'm looking for this kind of character. It's a character who's become tougher over time because, you know, I think how it is in part 4. I've only seen part 4 once. You know, I didn't really, it was okay. I didn't hate it, but you know, this is not, we're not here to criticize movies. We're here to talk about voice acting. But you know, she was much tougher in that one. She was very independent, and she was teaching Woody the ropes. You know, she was like, Woody, I'm a tough gal now, so I'm gonna show you. So I think in order to keep that energy up, you know, like she's gonna be tough, she's gonna be sassy, she's independent. Cree Summers, because she could nail it. And for the last one is Jessie. I don't know why this was on the bottom of my list. I think it's just because of how I wrote it, and I was copying off of Google. That's how much work is done into these videos, folks. Jessie. This was actually one of the first ones that I got easy lickety-split off the top of my head, just like picking Alejandro Saab. This was the second pick. The other characters, the other voice actors, it took me some more time to think about. But Jessie, I immediately think of another one of the new generation youngsters here, Molly Zhang. Although, honestly, it might not be so much from her actual voice acting, which is really good, by the way. She's very good. She's, if you're watching the Netflix new Conan anime, you know, Case Closed, I think they call it in the US, the Detective Conan, that's her. She's a little boy. She's very good. But it's honestly how she's, like, on her YouTube channel, she likes to yell all the time, and it's very entertaining. She's very funny, and so when I think of Jessie, because Jessie's very hyper, she's very energetic, she's all like yeehaw and all that stuff. So in that case, I immediately think of Molly. I honestly can't think of anyone else who could bring the kind of energy that I'm looking for in this character, Jessie, and who could also bring that energy down when it's needed. And we all know, like, if you've seen, you know, the other Toy Story movies, the older ones, especially part 2, when we first meet Jessie, and she just absolutely endears herself to, you know, the viewers and everything. I think she's a popular character specifically because of part 2. We meet her, we see how, you know, energetic and fun she is, but then we also see her backstory, which is like really sad. It's like, oh my gosh, we want to just give her hugs and you know, head pass and all that stuff. She's a great character. I don't know why I said head pass. Don't worry about it. But I think Molly would be able to get that range down easily. This wouldn't even be a challenge for her. I think she would nail this character just like that. But anyway, that is it. It looks like this video is going to be a lot longer than I thought. I won't find out until I get the editing down. Hopefully I can get rid of some of the stuttering that you guys have been hearing. But anyway, let me know what you think. If you have any of your own ideas for who would make good characters or good voice actors for the Toy Story cast, go ahead and put them down in the comment section below. Are there any other animated movies, either past or present, or maybe in the future, that you think would make a good video for this? You know, Hollywood does it all the time. Almost all of their movies, if not 100% of them, are Hollywood actors first. So we could always mess with a whole bunch of those. You know, let me know in the comments. Till I see you guys next time, please make sure to like the video if you liked it. If you didn't, that's fine. Go ahead and give it a thumbs down. If you like these kinds of videos, this kind of formats, if you like talking about voice acting, then go ahead and subscribe. You know, let your friends know. If they like voice acting, send them my way. I love talking about voice actors. I want to hear suggestions for voice actors. I'm still going to be doing my my Know Your Voice Actor kind of retrospective videos, I guess you can call them. Those are still happening. I'm going to do some like voice acting reaction videos. I got those planned out, and I think this can be another format that can help bring, you know, variety, as well as not being as hard to edit as some of my other videos. And don't forget, you know, even like, remember that if you've seen my last video about fighting games, you know, voice actors in fighting games, maybe you want to see some voice actors in RPGs, maybe you've seen voice actors in adventure games, whatever. Anyway, this video is starting now. I'm just starting to ramble. This video is getting too long, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I want to thank you guys very much for your time, and I do hope that you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, all you beautiful, beautiful people.